Hello everyone, welcome back to MEFB 2013 Manufacturing Processes. So today we're going to start a new chapter, hot working and cold working processes. So this is the next manufacturing process that we're going to talk to. So if you recall back correctly, we started off with introduction to manufacturing, and then we spoke about all the types of materials available under the nature and properties of material. And then slowly we moved on to the different types of manufacturing processes. First we spoke about sand casting. Secondly, we spoke about die casting. Then we spoke about metal cutting. If you remember, we spoke about the different tool angles and everything meant for metal cutting. We spoke about welding, joining processes. And now we're going to talk about hot working and cold working. So hot working and cold working is another manufacturing process. Okay, so hot working, examples of hot working are rolling, forging, which involves hammer, drop, press and roll forging, extrusion, pipe manufacturing, drawing, whereas cold working involves tube finishing, wire drawing, foil manufacturing, spinning, rolling and bending. Okay, so first of all, I would like to explain to you solely on hot working, and then I will move on to cold working again. So now, what is hot working? Hot working of metal. Hot working is the process of shaping an ingot or strand into products by means of plastic deformation at a temperature above recrystallization temperature. So what do I mean by at a temperature above recrystallization temperature? First of all, what is recrystallization temperature? So if you look at the definition, I don't expect you to memorize the definition, just that some keywords here that I wish to highlight. If you see, it starts from an ingot. It's a shaping process where it starts from an ingot, okay, at room temperature, and it slowly transforms into the final product, okay, in material, whatever the temperature was. So and another keyword there you see is at a temperature shaping by means of plastic deformation at a temperature above recrystallization temperature. So what is recrystallization temperature, and what is or when does a recrystallization temperature occur? So let's look at it. In room temperature, okay, so in room temperature, okay, we have an ingot. Agreed? In room temperature, we have an ingot. What is the crystal structure of this ingot? Okay, so you see the atoms. Atoms are randomly distributed. Okay, so I expect to see a crystalline atomic structure that is random in this ingot. Okay, so at room temperature, what is room temperature? You think about 27 degrees Celsius. Okay, so now your first step is to apply heat. Okay, so you're applying heat. Panaskan, apply heat. So when you apply heat, what happens to the atomic structure within that ingot? Atomic structure will start to absorb the heat energy. It absorbs heat energy and it starts to vibrate. Okay, so it absorbs the energy from the heat and it starts to gain energy and it starts to vibrate randomly. So as you go down, as the amount of heat increases, you will find that as the temperature increases, the atoms will gain more and more energy and it will move more randomly in a very in a vibrating position. So at some point, if you continue heating it until the melting point, okay, so if you reach the melting point, say melting point is 1000 degrees Celsius, okay, you have achieved a melting point which is 1000 degrees Celsius. It has already been in liquid state. That's it. And so if that ever happens, you are going to basically use that liquid metal or molten metal and pour it into a die casting process and use a die casting technique. But here you're not doing that. You're capturing the metal at a temperature above recrystallization temperature. So as you go the particles will start to gain energy and start to vibrate accordingly. And as it goes, the vibration, as you increase temperature, vibration increase. Slowly, as it progresses and you observe the grain structure will start to break up and start to rearrange itself in a more orderly manner. At some point, you find that at a temperature just before melting point, we call it a recrystallization temperature. Okay, at a point just before melting point, we call it a recrystallization temperature, maybe at somewhat 800 degrees Celsius. Yeah. So as you go, as I told you, the grains will start to absorb the heat, gain energy from the heat, and it starts to break because it collides with each other. The grains collide with each other, so it starts to break up into smaller particles as the temperature increases. So as you go along, temperature increases, it will break up the particle into more smaller atomic structure, and the atomic structure will start to rearrange itself in a more orderly manner. So when it rearranges itself in a more orderly manner, you are actually altering the mechanical properties of that material. So initially, this was your grain structure, yeah, random, and because it gains heat and the atomic structure starts to rearrange itself, at some point, a point where we call recrystallization structure, meaning the atoms have rearranged itself in a more orderly manner and it's more organized right now. So at this point, at 800 degrees Celsius, when the material is in its semi-solid state, we are going to shape it. How are we going to shape it? We are going to use mold, acuan, or we are going to use tools to shape it. And we capture the material at this particular point. If we let it go all the way till the end, it is going to melt. It's going to be in liquid state. Liquid state, you need to use die casting or sand casting. So we capture it at the recrystallization temperature. At this point, the material will be soft. It will be like plasticine, yeah? Clay, plasticine. So it's very easily molded at this particular point in time. So below, when we try to shape it at this particular point in time, it's easily moldable. Unfortunately, there's one shortcomings here, is that we must use heat resistant tools, because at 800 degrees Celsius, your tools must be heat resistant, and for you to use a heat resistant tool, the tool is going to be a very, very costly affair, right? So you're going to use a heat resistant tool in order for you to shape this material, and then once it is being shaped, you are going to let it cool back to room temperature. So now, initially, this was your ingot with different mechanical properties, and after heating up above recrystallization temperature, due to the grain rearrangement in a more orderly manner, you have a more stronger crystallite structure. Therefore, you have altered the mechanical properties of the metal right now, and whatever product that is formed from this recrystalled material is going to have a much higher mechanical properties. Mechanical properties means higher density, hardness, fracture toughness, so on and so forth. And you're going to get superior mechanical properties and a much superior product from hot working. Okay, so that is hot working. Keywords here: recrystallization temperature, and heating it up above recrystallization temperature to obtain the grain structure that you want. So then you shape it at that particular point and then let it cool down back to room temperature. Okay, whereas as in opposed to it, we look back at the definition of hot working, process of shaping an ingot or strand into products by means of plastic deformation at temperatures above recrystallization temperature. For cold working is exactly the same definition. I'm not going to look at cold working now, but just for a comparison, yeah. Cold working is the process of shaping an ingot or strand into products by means of plastic deformation. So it's still going to go plastic deformation, yeah, but at temperatures below recrystallization temperature. So what do I mean by below recrystallization temperature? It actually means in room temperature. So if I have an undefined shape ingot, in room temperature, can you shape an undefined shape ingot into a specific cube or a specific shape? Is it possible without using tools, without using any equipment? Is it possible? Definitely not. So how does cold working occur? Okay, we'll talk about that in the next chapter. So just a quick comparison between hot working and cold working. So like I just mentioned to you, in hot working, deformation forces are less. You need less deformation forces. Why? Because you have heated the material to above recrystallization temperature. Material is in semi-solid state. So the amount of force needed to shape it is minimal. Whereas in cold working, you need extremely large forces to shape the material. Hot working changes the mechanical properties of the metal. Whereas in cold working, because you're not applying any heat, you're not altering the atomic structure of the material. Therefore, cold working, no changes in mechanical properties. Mechanical properties remain the same. In hot working, the thickness of the material is changed substantially. But in cold working, thickness remains the same because again, you are not altering the atomic structure of the material. In hot working, because of high temperatures, oxidation takes place. But in cold working, there is no oxidation. No heat involvement, no oxidation. In hot working, less energy is required to shape the metal rather than it is being cold work. Obviously, less energy. Why? Because your material is in semi-solid state when you're shaping it in hot working. Therefore, you need less energy as compared to when it is being cold work. Okay, so what are the advantages of hot working? Porosity and voids are eliminated. So just like I mentioned to you, yeah, if you look here, this was your initial grain with a lot of voids, ruang kosong, in between the metal. And this is your atomic structure after recrystallization. So which is better, this or this? Definitely this, right? If you look at the grain structure, it's much more in a more orderly manner with less voids. What happens when there's a lot of voids? Your material becomes weak because if there is a crack or an impact, the crack propagates through a void, ruang kosong, and it can fracture easily. Therefore, here your material is much stronger. Therefore, a hot work material has much better, higher mechanical properties. Impurities are pressed into fibers and distributed throughout the metal. Coarse grains are refined. So, like I mentioned to you, initially your grains are large, huge grains. Now, grains are refined to tinier grains. Because of grain refinement, physical properties, ductility and strength are improved. Less energy is required to shape the metal if it is hot work. However, it also comes with a set of disadvantages. High temperature causes oxidation. Close tolerance are difficult to maintain because of scaling. What do I mean by scaling? Scaling is when you heat it up above recrystallization temperature and you shape it. So remember back in the topic of die casting, when you heat up a material when you're shaping it and when you're allowing the material to cool down to room temperature, if you remember in die casting, I mentioned it to you. The moment the object is shaped, you need to eject it in eject it immediately. Why? Because we allow the metal to cool in a die casting machine. It may expand and the expansion may damage the walls of the mold, correct? So here same thing, okay? In hot working, we find it very difficult to maintain the dimension accurately because there's a tendency for it to either shrink or expand when it cools down back to room temperature. So that's point number 2, yeah. And like I mentioned to you during the explanation, you need to definitely use heat resistant tools because you're shaping at a temperature above recrystallization temperature. Therefore, you need to use heat resistant tools and equipment, and you must remember that if your tool or your equipment is heat resistant, it's going to be a very, very expensive affair. Okay, so I will stop here. Thank you all for today. I will see you in the next class tomorrow. I'll be online tomorrow morning from 11 to 2. Please come online and ask me anything that you wish to ask. Please make sure you start working on your assignment 4. It's due on Friday. And again, I would sum up assignment 3 and assignment 4 grades, and I will publish your grades on Sunday. Okay, so thank you for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.